Thinking of exiting your business or taking on a private equity partner to help you grow faster? BizNexus has you covered. Tap into our network of thousands of best-fit investors, acquirers, and proven M&A advisors, and we'll help you begin the relationship confidentially on your terms, your timeline. Learn more at biznexus.com.
Disclaimer from the always present legal team. Podcast conversations don't necessarily reflect the views of BizNexus Incorporated. Everything you hear is informational news and updates from around the industry. We're not recommending any investments. We're not offering any investment advice. Be sure to do your own homework.
Welcome back to The Deep Dive. Today we are getting into the U.S. aerospace and defense industry. Now, this is a sector that feels, incredibly stable, but right now it's going through this massive, almost hidden physical transformation.
It really is.
We're talking about how everything from geopolitical tension to the new space race is fundamentally reshaping corporate real estate all across the country.
And that's such a crucial area to look at, because the strategic analysis from Alex Ross really shows that A&D is, it's exceptionally stable. It just sailed right through the pandemic shocks. It's generally recession resistant. But that stability is actually driving fundamental change. We're seeing these huge pressure points around specialized labor, very complex supply chains, and I think most importantly, the demand for facilities that are so specialized, they often just don't exist yet.
So that's the roadmap for us today.
That's the 2025 roadmap, exactly.
Yeah. We are going to unpack the 5 core macro forces driving these A&D decisions. And we want to specifically highlight how this creates new opportunities, especially for that vital, often unseen, lower middle market supply chain.
Right.
We want you to understand not just that this is happening, but why the next big tech factory is being built exactly where it is.
Okay, so where do we start?
Let's unpack this. I mean, we're looking beyond just the normal business cycle here. What are the, say, 5 big picture forces that are compelling A&D companies to make these huge multi-billion-dollar real estate decisions right now?
Well, Alex Ross's analysis is very clear on this. The first driver is obvious, but it's critical. Defense spending growth.
Okay.
Geopolitical tensions, Europe, the Middle East, the Pacific, they aren't just driving growth, they're driving a very specific type of growth.
Meaning what exactly?
Meaning there's a huge emphasis on modernization and, crucially, on prioritizing domestic manufacturers and suppliers. If the government is funding it, it has to be stateside.
So that immediately requires physical, secure, U.S.-based industrial real estate.
Immediately.
That domestic part makes a lot of sense, securing the source. But speaking of spending, what about the space economy boom? Doesn't that mostly involve those huge, high-profile coastal facilities? Why is privatization driving new footprints across the country?
That's the second driver. And you've hit on the key point. Historically, it was all NASA, all government centers. But now, since the U.S. Space Force was created in 2019 with reusable rockets, the costs have just plummeted.
Right.
So private space travel is actually viable. And NASA and the DoD are outsourcing major operations to companies like SpaceX, Blue Origin. Those private firms need launch control, massive assembly facilities, and land for thousands of components. That pushes demand way beyond the Space Coast.
So we have more government spending, explosive private demand in space. The weak link here seems like it would be actually getting all the parts made reliably.
Absolutely. And that's the third driver, supply chain resiliency. I mean, we all learned a tough lesson during the pandemic. And geopolitical friction has only made it worse. The focus now is on aggressively reshoring manufacturing and diversifying suppliers to reduce that dependency on foreign parts. And when you say reshoring, you're talking about building new facilities here. That's a huge driver of new real estate investment.
And I imagine a new advanced manufacturing facility needs a really specialized workforce.
Exactly. And that is the fourth key theme, labor constraints. Finding and retaining skilled labor is becoming a strategic emergency for these companies. A lot of the qualified, experienced workers are, approaching retirement age. So companies have to get very strategic about location. They're prioritizing sites near strong engineering schools, technical colleges, places that can guarantee that next generation of talent.
And then finally, there's the huge corporate chess game of M&A.
That's the fifth driver. We've seen these massive mergers and acquisitions. When these giants merge, They inherit these huge, often overlapping real estate portfolios.
So they have to optimize.
They have to. Does that mean consolidating all the classified R&D onto one impenetrable campus? Yes. Does it mean outsourcing logistics to third parties? Also yes. It's about shedding what's redundant while hardening your core assets.
Okay, so we know the big players, Lockheed, Boeing, Raytheon, and their traditional strongholds. If we look at their existing footprint, where have they been concentrated historically?
Historically, it was all centralized near military bases or old aviation hubs. So you have Washington State, Seattle, and Everett. That's the legacy of Boeing commercial aircraft.
Right.
California is still crucial for R&D for defense contractors like Northrop Grumman. Texas, of course, Dallas-Fort Worth has the iconic Lockheed Martin F-35 plant. And then Florida is the Space Coast.
And the Alex Ross analysis points out that the D.C. metro area, while it's not a manufacturing hub, it's still absolutely critical.
It's the nerve center. Over 100 A&D companies have major headquarters there. The map really shows the biggest presence in states like California, Texas, Florida, and Washington, all clustered where they can interface directly with the DoD.
They need that access. And if we look at how their real estate breaks down, it seems heavily biased toward production facilities that they own themselves.
It's a huge distinction. The data shows the biggest players are massive industrial operators. They want control. Boeing, for instance, owns almost 70% of its space, and 79% of that is manufacturing.
Wow.
Or look at Textron. 94% of their real estate is manufacturing space. They aren't office companies. They're production behemoths.
Okay, here's where the story of the supply chain really gets interesting for me. If the big hubs are so expensive and centralized, the explosive growth we're seeing has to be happening somewhere else, right?
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
And the shift is driven by the search for affordability and, critically, for that skilled talent. This is exactly where the lower middle market suppliers, the LMM, come in. What's really compelling in the data is that A&D accelerated its investment in manufacturing lease volume between 2017 and 2024. And the size of the buildings they're moving into is ballooning. The average manufacturer move-in size in 2024 was nearly double what it was just 7 years ago.
Double. That suggests a huge movement away from the coasts.
It is. Recent move-in data shows a major activity in non-traditional markets like Tucson, Phoenix, Baltimore, Indianapolis. Alex Ross notes these moves are, and I'm quoting here, consistent with sites that provide skilled labor, location near strong supply chains, and more affordable real estate options. This is the supply chain following the opportunity.
And we saw that A&D jobs have increased dramatically, over 51,000 jobs since 2021. So where is this advanced manufacturing workforce actually being created?
We're seeing a few regions become new centers of gravity. Huntsville, Alabama, Rocket City is massive. Tucson, Arizona is seeing huge growth tied to Raytheon's missile systems. Oklahoma City is becoming a critical hub for military repair and overhaul.
I see.
And you can't overlook Salt Lake City, which has heavy investment from Northrop Grumman for rocket motor production and ICBM modernization. These hotspots are demanding that their smaller tiered suppliers follow them.
So let's define that for the listener. When we say lower middle market supply chain, we're talking about the specialized machine shops, the advanced component makers. If these firms are moving, what are they demanding from commercial real estate? It can't be a standard warehouse.
No, you're absolutely right. The facility has to match the tech. For the big prime contractors, the trend is footprint optimization. They're shedding non-core office space, adopting hybrid work, but simultaneously investing heavily in secure, high-tech campuses for classified R&D.
So this is like an extreme flight to quality, leaving older, cheaper space for the absolute best security.
Precisely. The flight to quality trend aligns perfectly with A&D's needs. They're moving out of outdated buildings into smart, high-security, energy-efficient facilities. And this isn't just a preference. It's often mandated by government contracts.
And the buildings themselves have to be smart from the ground up.
Absolutely. The push toward digitalization and smart buildings is intense. They're using things like digital twin modeling. So you're talking about facilities with IoT sensors, predictive maintenance, robust cybersecurity built right into the structure. That demands specialized infrastructure, massive power, top-tier connectivity.
Let's go back to the LMM again. Those smaller suppliers are nimble, but they live and die by unpredictable government contracts. And how do they handle that instability with their real estate?
That's where flexible leasing becomes a story about risk mitigation. To stay nimble, these smaller firms are negotiating shorter, more flexible leases so they can scale up or down. But what's really radical, and this is a huge indicator of supply chain anxiety, is that the large manufacturers are increasingly taking over the lease commitments for their smaller suppliers.
Wait, hold on. A massive prime contractor is guaranteeing the lease for a local machine shop. Why would they do that?
To stabilize their own supply chain. It's a direct real estate intervention. If that small, specialized firm goes under because of a contract delay, the prime contractor loses a critical source of parts.
So by guaranteeing the lease...
By guaranteeing the lease, the big manufacturer ensures that supplier can maintain their production capacity. It turns real estate from a cost center into a strategic supply asset.
That's fascinating. Let's shift to a foundational requirement then. Energy. Advanced manufacturing sounds power-intensive, but why is it becoming the defining factor?
It is rapidly becoming the next huge bottleneck. Alex Ross's analysis shows advanced manufacturing demands substantial, uninterrupted electricity. But it's not just steady consumption, it's the massive peak demand.
Peak demand?
Think about testing a directed energy weapon or running a massive simulation. Those things cause acute, enormous power spikes that most industrial grids just can't handle.
And are developers keeping up with these power demands in these new emerging markets?
Not everywhere. And that's the infrastructure challenge. Developers are being forced to focus on sites with robust existing electrical grids. Many of these developing industrial areas just don't have the capacity. It also ties back to sustainability, driving demand for green buildings with on-site solar and storage to guarantee that power.
So how are the general property markets, office, manufacturing, warehouse responding to all this specialized A&D demand?
It really depends on the property type.
Yeah.
Take the office market. Overall, it's historically weak, high vacancy. This is fantastic for A&D tenants.
Why is that?
Because A&D companies have very strong government-backed credit. That gives them significant tenant leverage. They can negotiate great deals to pursue that flight to quality, getting top-tier Class A facilities at favorable rates.
So the power shifts back to the tenant, but only if you have rock-solid financials.
Precisely. Now, in contrast, the manufacturing market is still very steady, very competitive. Vacancy is low, below 4%. But the construction pipeline for A&D is unique. About half of the new construction is built to suit.
Meaning they have to build it from scratch.
You have to. These facilities require extremely customized layouts, high security, things speculative development just can't offer. You can't just rent a box. You have to build an impenetrable custom box.
And finally, flex space for R&D and prototyping.
Yeah, flex space demand really correlates with investment in new tech AI private space travel. Alex Ross concludes that investment is likely to be strong in the midterm, say the next 2 to 4 years, driven by that continued increase in geopolitical tensions.
This has been incredibly illuminating. So the A&D sector's future footprint it's clearly defined by this need for secure, advanced manufacturing and an aggressive talent strategy. We're seeing a split, right? The high security hubs like DC and the Space Coast remain essential.
For government interface and R&D.
But the localization of that lower middle market supply chain and new job creation are pushing real large-scale growth into these more affordable, talent-rich metros.
And to summarize the key takeaways for you, the listener, drawing from Alex Ross's conclusions, the rise of flexible modular factory designs is becoming imperative. That agility is just non-negotiable now.
And companies have to be proactive. They need to understand and leverage local and federal incentive programs like from the Inflation Reduction Act early in the planning process. The financial engineering is just as important as the structural engineering.
That is absolutely true. And if we connect this all back to the bigger picture, we see reshoring, digitalization, the search for labor, all driving location decisions right now. But given the enormous energy requirements for this advanced manufacturing and simulation, will the search for skilled labor or the securing of adequate, consistent, and predictable power costs ultimately become the single most critical factor determining where the A&D supply chain puts its roots next? That's something for you to mull over.
Acquiring a business? BizNexus simplifies it. Access thousands of updated opportunities in our DIY marketplace or supercharge team sourcing with OmniSource, your all-in-one platform for on-market, off-market, and coming-soon deals. Scale smarter today. Learn more or book a demo at www.biznexus.com.